My sister and I kept noticing the same thing. Every woman who visited our neighbor left looking completely dazed. We had questions, so we went over to introduce ourselves, and the second he opened the door, we knew he wasn't surprised to see us. Before we start, if you're a regular here and enjoy these stories, take a second to like and subscribe. It's the simplest way to support the channel, and I truly appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Let's begin. It was late, and I was about to head upstairs when something caught my eye through the front window just across the street. His bedroom light flicked on, and he wasn't alone. I stopped mid-step, one hand still on the banister. A woman stood near the window, already halfway undressed. Her dress slipped off her shoulders like it had happened 100 times before. She leaned into him, hands on his chest, while he just stood there, calm and still like he had all the time in the world. "Sile," I called, my voice low but urgent. "You need to see this." She wandered in with a blanket wrapped around her, hair messy from the couch. "What?" I pointed without turning. "He's at it again," she sighed. "Ava, come on." "No, seriously, look." She stepped beside me, hesitant, but when she glanced out the window, her eyes widened. Through the glass we could see everything. Her back was against the wall now. His hand braced beside her head. He leaned in, whispering something. She laughed, then went quiet as he slowly lifted her thigh, guiding her closer. Claire covered her mouth. "We shouldn't be watching this." "And yet," I said, grinning. We both stayed there, motionless, pressed close to the window like teenagers spying on something we weren't supposed to see. He moved slowly, like he'd done this 1,000 times, like her reactions didn't surprise him anymore. She clung to him, her head rolling back, her legs shaky before she even moved. When he turned her around, she held the window frame like it was the only thing keeping her steady. Kile shifted. "Is that the same girl from last week?" "Nope," I said. "That's a new one. 5th, maybe 6th this month." Claire shook her head, but her eyes didn't leave the window. "That's insane." "I'm telling you," I whispered. They come in confident, laughing, flirting, and leave looking like they've just been through something they'll never forget. We watched her tense again, her mouth dropped open, jaw slack, eyes fluttering. He barely moved, but whatever he was doing had her holding on like her whole body was reacting to it. Claire turned away, flustered. "Okay, that's enough." I didn't move. "You can't tell me you're not a little curious." She sat down on the armrest, clutching her blanket tighter. "I mean, he is kind of impressive." "Kind of," said. "That man is a walking mystery. Mid-50s, barely says a word, never brags, and somehow has every woman in this neighborhood leaving his place like they just stepped out of a dream." Claire bit her lip, smiled. "I want to know what that's like." She laughed nervously. "You're not serious." "Oh, I'm very serious. Not tonight," I added. "But tomorrow I might go over there, say hi, introduce myself." "You're going to what?" "Knock on his door and ask for a sample." "Maybe I'll borrow sugar," I said, grinning. "Or ask if he needs help carrying something heavy. Whatever works." Claire stood, blanket still clutched tight. "You're out of your mind." "I know," I said. "Oh, but admit it, you're wondering too." She didn't answer, just pulled the blanket tighter and looked away. I woke up the next morning with one thing still stuck in my head, him. No part of me felt guilty about watching. If anything, I was more curious than ever. What was it about him that left every woman completely shaken? Claire, on the other hand, acted like last night hadn't burned itself into her brain too. She was still in her pajamas, curled up on the couch with a bowl of cereal like nothing had happened at all. I leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "So," I said casually, "I'm thinking now's a good time." She didn't look up. "Good time for what?" "You know what." She sighed, already bracing. "You were serious." "Completely." "Ava," she groaned, "you cannot just knock on some man's door because you liked what you saw through his window." "First of all," I said, grabbing my keys, "it's not just what I saw. It's what I've seen. Repeatedly. Consistently. And last night." That sealed it. Claire pulled the blanket over her head. I'm not going. You don't have to do anything, I said. Just come with me. Back me up. Maybe pretend I'm borrowing something. He peeked out. Why do you even want me there? Because, I said, walking over. You'll keep me from doing something too bold. Or you'll pressure me into doing something stupid. Possibly, I said, grinning. But either way, it'll be fun. She rolled her eyes, but I could tell she was folding. When she stood, arms crossed tight, I tossed her a hoodie. A few minutes later, we were crossing the street. My heart thudded. Not from nerves, just anticipation. Chile stayed a step behind me the whole way. I knocked once. The door creaked open almost immediately. He stood there barefoot, shirt halfway buttoned, hair still damp from a shower. And the way he looked at us, like he already knew exactly who we were, was wondering when we'd finally meet. He looked at us like he already knew why we were there. I didn't miss the way his eyes moved, just once, from me to Claire, then back again. Measured, like he'd been waiting. Hey, I said, keeping my voice light. Sorry to just show up. We were out for a walk and figured might as well say hi. Scylla stood just behind me, arms crossed. Hoodie pulled tight like she wanted to disappear. He nodded once. Nice of you to stop by. We're Ava and CLA, I added. Across the street. I know. That was all he said. Nothing more. But something in the way he said it made it clear. He didn't buy our excuse, and he didn't need to. He stepped aside. We walked in. The house was warm and still, filled with soft light and the faint smell of coffee. Music played somewhere in the background. Slow, low, like it had been on for hours. On the counter, 2 glasses, one already full. I raised an eyebrow. Expecting someone. Not really, he said. Just figured I might have company. I shot CLA a look. She pretended not to notice. He handed me the glass. I took it without hesitation. Claire hovered near the door, still unsure, still quiet. You're not what I pictured, I said, taking a small sip. Neither are you. Smirk. And what did you picture? His tone didn't change. People who watch that closely usually avoid eye contact. Flinched. I didn't. You saw us. It's a window, he said. Not a one-way mirror. I laughed, quiet and sharp. Fair. He dropped onto the edge of the couch like it was nothing, arms resting on his knees. Claire still hadn't moved. You can go any time, he said gently, looking her way. No pressure. She didn't answer, just stayed where she was, eyes flicking between us. I leaned on the back of the couch, facing him. You get a lot of fake excuses at your door? He looked up at me and smiled, calm and sure. I leave the window open for a reason. I didn't back away. Got closer. I leaned against him, one leg draped casually across his lap, fingers resting lightly on his shoulder. He didn't move, just let his hand settle on my thigh like he'd been expecting me. Claire's voice cut through the quiet. You're actually doing this. I looked over at her, still standing near the door. You act like I dragged you here. You kind of did. Then go, I said simply. Or stay and admit you're not just here for me. She shook her head. He's a stranger, Ava. No. He's the man who's had every woman in this neighborhood leaving his house like they forgot what year it was. Including the one we watched last night. He raised an eyebrow just slightly. I try to make sure they don't forget me. Claire flinched at that, but her eyes stayed locked on his. I stood up slowly, walked over and took her hand. She froze. I felt her pulse jump under my fingers. You don't have to do anything, I said quietly. But don't lie to yourself either. Then I guided her forward step by step, right in front of him. He looked up at her, calm, steady, unreadable. Then leaned in and kissed her. Claire let out a shaky breath when his mouth touched hers, but after a heartbeat, she pulled back, her face flushed. I didn't hesitate. I stepped in, brushing past her, and kissed him with full intent. No guessing. No pause. I made it clear what I wanted. His hands moved to my hips, steady and deliberate. When I leaned back, neither of us said a word. I reached for the hem of my dress, and he mirrored me. We slipped out of them like it wasn't the first time we'd done this with someone. Then I moved closer, hands still resting on him. His breathing shifted. I took my time, tracking every change in his body, the way his shoulders tightened, how his grip tensed slightly against the cushion. I wanted to feel everything he was holding back. Behind me, something changed. He looked past me and offered a hand. Claire stood there, still holding her dress like a shield, hovering between stepping forward and walking out. He didn't say a word, just nodded. Scylla moved toward us, slow, cautious, but not resisting. He kissed her again, softly this time. She didn't pull away. His hand slid behind her neck, grounding her, while his other hand helped ease the dress from her shoulders. It dropped without a sound, and her breath followed. Kept going, letting the rhythm guide me. So joined me on the floor, still hesitant until he touched her cheek, guiding her with calm certainty. Our hands brushed briefly, both of us focused on the same purpose. She moved with a hesitance that spoke of both curiosity and caution, slower now, more careful, as if each motion was a quiet question. But I could see the change in her, subtle at first, growing bolder with every passing second. There was a new spark in her, a flicker of confidence building in the way her hands explored, the way her body responded. And then, as his head tipped back ever so slightly, a small but telling shift, I felt a rush of satisfaction. We were getting through to him. We were making progress. Then his voice cut through the moment, low and calm, but with a quiet authority that made my breath hitch. Both of you up. Without hesitation, we stood in unison, the air between us humming with unspoken tension. He leaned back further into the couch, sinking deeper into the cushions, his arms stretching along the backrest in a gesture that was equal parts invitation and command. I moved first, carefully placing one knee on the couch beside him, then the other, climbing up with slow, measured movements until I was straddling him completely. I adjusted myself until I was right where I needed to be. Close, aligned, perfectly positioned. Every inch of me was aware of his presence, of the heat radiating between us, of the anticipation coiling in my core. The moment his lips brushed against my skin, everything in me tightened instinctively. My fingers gripped his shoulders with more urgency, grounding myself as sensation rolled over me. He didn't rush. Every move he made was deliberate, each touch executed with a patience and precision that left no doubt he knew exactly what he was doing. He was focused, intensely so, and it showed in the way he explored me, slow, unhurried, utterly in control. I let my head fall back, eyes fluttering shut, breathing through the overwhelming wave of pleasure that threatened to pull me under. Then Scylla lowered herself again, settling back into the space beside us. I looked down briefly as she leaned in, picking up right where I had left off. Her hands moved with purpose now, still cautious, still learning, but no longer uncertain. They had found a rhythm, a cadence that suited her, and I guided her with a gentle touch, encouraging, steadying, teaching her not just what to do, but how to trust herself as she did it. And in that moment we moved together, in sync, slowly growing more fearless, as something deeper began to take shape between the three of us. We moved in sync, our bodies finding a rhythm born from instinct and shared desire. There was no need for words. Everything was communicated through touch, through breath, through the subtle shifts in posture and gaze. His focus remained steady, unwavering, as if the world outside this moment had ceased to exist. Each motion flowed into the next with deliberate precision, every movement a careful crescendo that sent waves pulsing down through my thighs, coiling tension low in my belly. My legs began to tremble under the pressure, my balance faltering ever so slightly. But I didn't care. I didn't want him to stop. Not now. Not when he was this close to unraveling me completely. Then a sudden intake of breath from Scylla cut through the air. Sharp, involuntary, revealing just how deeply she, too, was caught in this current. He reached for her without breaking his rhythm, his hand sliding up her side in a wordless invitation. She rose, responding to his touch like it was a tether pulling her upward, and he guided her gently into his lap. His arms wrapped around her waist as she stood poised above him, her breathing already uneven. There was no hesitation in his touch, only reassurance, a steady strength that welcomed her forward. I stepped back slightly to give her space, trailing my fingers lightly along the curve of her spine as she settled into position. Her skin warmed beneath my touch, and I felt her shiver just slightly, not from cold, but from the anticipation that hung thick in the air. She closed her eyes, drawing in a slow, steadying breath, and let gravity begin its quiet pull. Her descent was measured, careful, each shift of her hips precise and intentional. She adjusted inch by inch, finding her place with growing confidence. He supported her with quiet certainty, one hand resting firmly at the small of her back, the other guiding her at the hips, grounding her as she moved. Her breaths turned shallow, breaking into soft, uneven gasps that told us how quickly she was losing control. Her eyes opened briefly to meet his, and in that exchange, a glance, a flicker of something deep and unspoken, she seemed to surrender entirely. She leaned forward, wrapping her arms around his shoulders, her fingers digging in slightly as her body began to find its own rhythm. Each motion built in strength, in urgency, her confidence blooming with every shift. The tension in her frame grew more visible, her breath catching, her rhythm faltering as the wave built. Then her whole body went taut, her head resting against his chest as her spine arched, just enough, just perfectly, revealing everything. It was in that single, vulnerable moment, the way she moved, the way she let herself go, that we knew. We saw it, felt it. She had crossed that invisible threshold. And in doing so, she pulled us with her. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Everything in her expression, the softness in her eyes, the way her body leaned into his, spoke louder than any sentence could. She was still lost in the moment, still floating in that delicate space between release and recovery. Her breathing slow and uneven, her skin flushed with afterglow. He held her for just a few moments longer, cradling her against him like something precious. Then, with that same quiet strength he carried in everything he did, he rose to his feet with her in his arms. She didn't protest, didn't shift or question, just allowed herself to be carried, her fingers loosely curled against his chest. He walked to the cushions and knelt down, lowering her gently, tenderly, as if laying down something fragile and sacred. She exhaled softly as her body melted into the cushions, her limbs heavy with surrender. Then he turned to me. He didn't need to ask. I was already ready, already there, facing away, my breath shallow and quick with anticipation. I felt his presence behind me before he even touched me, the air shifting, the space between us charged. And then his hands found me, firm, unflinching, and we moved together with an ease that was almost instinctual. There was no pause, no awkward searching. He guided me with precision, slipping into a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. It took over instantly, commanding my attention, grounding me while simultaneously lifting me into something more. His hands were confident, sure in their purpose. Every movement was measured but filled with intention. His pace steady, firm, unrelenting in the most perfect way. From the corner of my eye, I caught Sa lying nearby, her head turned toward us, eyes barely open as she watched. Her body was still catching up, her chest rising and falling with lingering aftershocks. She looked radiant, flushed and undone but peaceful. I smiled at her, the warmth between us holding steady, even in the stillness. But then the pressure shifted. A sharp, unexpected change in angle made me gasp, my body instinctively reaching forward, hands grabbing at the couch to find some semblance of balance. My fingers dug into the cushions as a low sound escaped me, somewhere between surprise and surrender. Each second that followed tugged me deeper into it, unraveling me by degrees, stripping away the space between thought and sensation. He knew exactly what he was doing, exactly where to go and how to keep me balanced at the edge without ever letting me fall. The way he adjusted, the way he moved, it wasn't just skill. It was intention. It was knowledge. And when he found that perfect angle, that one devastating spot, my back arched involuntarily, my whole body locking into the moment as a surge of sensation crashed through me. Hit hard. Clean. No warning, no build-up. Just a fast electric shock of release that made my breath catch in my throat and my limbs tremble. I leaned forward, eyes shut tight, trying to hold myself together as wave after wave moved through me. And still he didn't slow. If anything, his pace grew more focused, more driven, as though my unraveling had only fueled him further. He kept me there, steady and purposeful, guiding my body through each aftershock with precision. I could barely hold on, barely think, only feel. He never lost control. He didn't falter. Then, when I was nothing but breath and sensation, he turned his attention back to Ciel. With that same careful strength, he reached for her again, lifting her effortlessly, her limbs still pliant from earlier, her breath catching as she was moved. He laid her back onto the cushions, this time flat, her hair splayed out around her like a halo. She had only a heartbeat to register what was happening before he joined her. No hesitation, no pause. Just urgency, purposeful and undeniable, as he moved against her with renewed intensity. And just like that, the rhythm began again. I knelt beside them, the warmth of their bodies radiating into the air, thick with heat and breath and something unspoken that tied the three of us together. Claire's skin glistened with sweat, her brow damp and flushed. I reached out gently, wiping it away with the back of my hand, then leaned in to press soft, lingering kisses along his shoulder and across the hard plane of his chest. He was slick with effort, his muscles tensed beneath my lips, every breath drawn deep and deliberate. Claire's hand searched for mine in the haze. I felt her fingers brush against my arm and I caught her hand instantly, weaving our fingers together and holding tight. She didn't need words. Her grip said everything. Then she moved again, her body finding his rhythm and matching it. No hesitation this time. Faster. More confident. She rose to meet him with purpose, as though every nerve in her body had been lit. And now she was chasing something she could finally see ahead of her. Her fingers dug into the cushions for leverage, knuckles paling as her breathing quickened and broke. Every motion built on the last, her body growing more responsive, more reactive, not retreating from the intensity but charging into it. I watched her closely, entranced. There was something breathtaking about the way she gave in so completely, not just to him but to herself. Her hips moved in perfect sync with his, and each second seemed to stretch and burn brighter than the one before. She was beautiful in that raw, uninhibited way that came only when there was nothing left to hide. And he never wavered. His focus stayed sharp, his body powerful and unrelenting. There was no stumble, no falter, just that relentless, tireless drive. It wasn't just impressive, it was awe-inspiring. It felt like he had no end, no point where he would give out or pull away. He moved with a fierce kind of grace, unwavering and undistracted. There was a moment, maybe more than one, when I genuinely believed he could keep going forever. But then, finally I heard it, a breath. Quiet. Controlled. Exhaled against her neck like a confession, like the surrender he'd held at bay for so long. His body stilled, his rhythm slowing as he reached the edge and gave in. Claire lay completely still, her body spent and trembling, her chest rising and falling with the deep, uneven rhythm of someone who had left everything on the other side of that moment. I curled up beside them, pressing myself into the warmth they had created. I reached up to brush a few damp strands of hair from her forehead, watching her with quiet affection, my own skin still tingling, my own heart still racing. Then I leaned in closer, my lips brushing her ear, and whispered with a teasing grin, "Still think it was a bad idea?" Her breath caught in something between a laugh and a sigh, and I just smiled wider. "Now, before you go, let's get real for a second. If two sisters showed up at your door like that, no warning, just a knock and a smile, what would you do? Be honest. Don't hold back. Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear every wild, honest thought. And hey, while you're here, go ahead and like, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Trust me, you'll want to see it. Thanks for watching.